Occasionally of inserting something in which you were personally involved. And after all, who is going to disagree with you when you say that was the best of Texas wrestling? Perhaps what you are about to see, a match between George Harris and myself, is not in the strictest sense of the word the best thing that ever happened. It could be one of the most unique things that ever happened, and we think that this then claims a place for it in the annals of the best of Texas wrestling. You will find over our series of programs that occasionally things will be inserted that call for a matter of opinion, editorial opinion. Remember, it's not the opinion of our sponsors nor the station, but in most cases it is the opinion of the producer of the program, and you're about to see the producer of the program wrestle George Harris.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your special event, one that you've been asking for, one that both the contestants decided they wanted, the inevitable match. In the white corner, ladies and gentlemen, from Houston, Texas. I haven't even looked at his weight, good heavens. 220 pounds. Guess who? Promoter Paul Boesch. Heading from Memphis, Tennessee, somewhere on the far side of 400 pounds, the baby blimp, George Harris III. Your referee, Dick Raines.
Well, up in the ring, you're looking at Dick Raines, and now that's Paul Boesch up there, and this is Paul Boesch sitting here in the studios of Channel 39, about to watch himself wrestle. This is a rare spectacle in my long career. Very seldom have I had the opportunity to put words to the things that I was doing up in the ring. I put a lot of sweat to it sometimes, and you're watching George Harris as he moves around to express a few opinions about what's happening on the outside of the ring. Dick Raines, who has been in that ring enough times to know a rare spectacle when he sees one, is about to witness one. And there you see it, the pink elephant, George Harris III himself. An amazing spectacle, if I do say so myself. So with the bell about to sound for this one fall to somebody's finished match, let's get it started, say I. And the effort to test the strength of the neck of George Harris, of course, is primary in wrestling. You always try to see how strong the other fellow is by putting his head down and seeing if he can do something about it. But George Harris III seemed to think that because the match had started prior to the bell, it was time. He presented the target, and you just can't avoid or miss a target like that. It's hard to restrain the impulse to do something that is ungentlemanly as I did. On the outside of the ring is Bronco Lubitsch, who is kind of reversing the procedure. It's generally George Harris III who is coaching Bronco, but right now we've got the coach on the outside to give a little bit of help to the brains on the inside, and that was not help that he needed, because George had a big fist, and the hold him and hit him technique here finds its mark. The side headlock is applied by a beefy arm. You've got to admit that George Harris III has unusually sized arms, but he also has unusually tender legs, and if you can find them with the correct side of a chop like that and hit in the muscles where it'll do some good and bounce them where it'll do some good, and you take a little bit of the starch out of them and please some of the fans out there on the outside of the ring. Picture of a man who probably wishes he was someplace else, although I did enjoy the battle with George Harris III. There's Bronco coming around there to tell George Harris what he did wrong. On this particular night, what he did wrong was to come into the ring. But he does make a fast move when it comes to getting out of the ring. Not always quite as speedy getting in. But don't ever sell Harris short, because he's big enough to be tough. He's had enough times in that ring to leave some of that toughness backed with experience. Right now he's caught in a Japanese arm lock. You see him helping his left arm with his right and being able to push and marshal enough strength to force himself out of it. And of course this pleases him. Anything that pleases George Harris makes him strut. And when he struts, that target comes around. So George Harris III has avoided one arm lock, but this was one he had forgotten about and probably hadn't seen anybody apply in a long time. The underneath approach to it, and it achieved the inevitable result. And I hope Clarence Shields got a good picture of that, because I know that Bronco Lubitsch, as he distracted referee Dick Raines on the outside, wasn't interested in pictures or anything else. You saw it, and the quick reversal of this particular hold was due to the fact that the referee was trying to keep somebody else from interfering. A little bit of push, a little bit of help to try to straighten out that arm and to keep him from being in a position to use all of his 400 pounds. That's the effort that's being put forward here. And you get tilted off balance that way while the referee isn't looking, and things happen. And if it works for one, it works for the other, even though Dick Raines frowns on it when he sees it. Doesn't always see it. That's the problem. Harris has more hair than I have, so the hold works better. And Dick Raines is determined to get that hand off of that hair, and he did. Left me with a handful of hair, but that was preferable to being caught in an arm lock. So in spite of Bronco Lubitsch's protestations on the outside of the ring, we can get right back up into that ring again, where the Pink Elephant is having his words with Dick Raines. Double wrist lock for George Harris, and we're going to lift him up for a body slam. At least that was the intention. Well, you see if you can lift George Harris up for a body slam and get him any further than I got him. A little bit tough. It's even tough to sit here and watch and remember the expenditure of energy that went with it. But I always work on the theory that there he goes, sliding into second again. And if you can work on a man's underpinnings enough, you're going to break him down to the point where you can beat him. And Lubitsch here is giving him a pep talk, telling him that this team just can't bear to be beaten by an old man like that one walking around up in the ring. So waiting for Harris to come back, Dick Raines tolling the count, and Harris still smarting from the chops on the legs. Harris suffers from TB, two bellies, but not a deadly affliction all the time, just an uncomfortable one when it gets in your way in a match like this. So Harris is complaining about the edge of the hand, and Dick Raines is comforting him by telling him that it's quite all right to use it. Harris again now with that standing arm lock that he figures he can use well, but here is his effort to apply a full Nelson, and my effort to get my neck straightened up so that I can do something about it, because when you chew, that will help. And that noise actually came from George Harris III. I think I was playing a rerun on it, because I heard it at the time, and it has stuck right with me, like the scars I got on my shin from falling into that chair. So Harris is ready, and now so am I, with a long windup. Really nothing to that long windup. I'm not going to throw it at him unless the pitch is right, but I think that it always tells a man your intentions, and if he wants to back away from them, he can. And nobody ever got killed while the other fellow was backing away. Side headlock, George Harris, and that big fist of his comes around. Yes, right smack on the nose, and that's the reason for the reaction. He holds that hold well because his arms are properly sized to snatch you around in a side headlock. And here you get a close-up look at him with those knuckles ready to dig into the face, and that big fist ready to punctuate it. I don't know what Harris is making a face for. He's not caught in the hold. He's just trying to hang on to it, and I'm trying to slip out of it or get knocked out of it. And here is one of the best moves I made against George Harris during the night. And you can see that the fans thought so too, and you can tell that he thought so. Stick around, because the moment this match is over, we're going to show you, by using Channel 39's great slow motion machine, what can really be done with a hold like that. Harris won't approve of it, but maybe you'll enjoy it. Body scissor is the hold, and as Dick Raines said to George Harris, if you don't give up, he might knock your brains out. And Harris decided that he would risk becoming an imbecile and take the punishment. Oh, that's the way it felt trying to get 400 pounds over in that particular hole. But fortunately, it worked. And as Harris goes outside, he has had some of the wind knocked out of him. The first opportunity I've had to do it in this particular match, so he must get some new advice from Branko Lubic. The pat on the back won't help much. Never does. Especially when you're the fellow who's going to go back up in and try to trade tricks with someone else. The long arm and the wind-up makes Harris at least stay away from me, whether I accomplish anything else with it or not. And that, of course, is the thing that most people miss about some of these gestures, that you gain a moment's respite for yourself. And again, the inevitable target. He may be sitting on one target, but he also presents a target in front, so that's the way to get at it. I don't know why I was telling Dick Raines at that particular time. I think I was telling him that I would prefer to wait until George Harris got up just a little bit and made an effort to defend himself. Harris, as he backs away, gives Branko Lubic an eye there. And Lubic, if you will watch, you can't see it, just jerked my foot out from under me, and there comes Harris on top of me, and most people, including me, thought that this was the end of the match. My legs were just long enough to wrap them around the rope, and Dick Raines was just kind enough to say that was enough to constitute breaking the hold. And this is the way you feel when you've got 400 pounds drop on you. You really need help to get up. So Harris, and here is a body slam, and somebody said that I slammed him to the canvas. I really dropped him, but it had the same effect. And George Harris III recognized the target too, and there it happened again, but he missed. And when 400 pounds misses that way, it's just like slamming him to the deck. The hold is a sleep hold, the hold that I've used on numerous occasions and have been using for a long, long time up in that ring. And there it's beginning to take effect. And you can see George Harris just about passing out as Dick Raines raises that arm and drops it several times. And then we drop George Harris. And some of my friends in the background were kind enough to be happily excited over it. The hand raised in victory. And I enjoyed it. I don't mind telling you. I enjoyed having the hand raised. Branko Lubic is being accused right there of jerking my foot out from under me, something which he did in spite of the fact that he didn't get penalized for it, and you didn't see it on camera. My chief assistant, Peter Burkholz, there in the background, and thank goodness he felt quite elated about it. But bringing a man to after he's been put to sleep is one of the pleasures that should be given to the victor, and this is what happened here. By getting the circulation flowing and the blood back into the brain, we've got Ride 'em Cowboy. We've got George Harris back into, well, we've got Branko Lubic in action, but we've got George Harris back into the world of things and stuff again. And we might have another match here, but I don't think that Lubic wanted it any more than I did, but I wasn't going to let him bluff me. He could roll up his sleeves, but I already had mine completely exposed. And in the background, you see what happens to George Harris after he's had an application of sleep hold, and he truly had one. So the winner, and not the champion of anything, that's most certainly sure, accepts the plaudits, first of Peter and then of Dick Raines, for which I am deeply grateful. But now just stick right there, because we're going to replay a couple of portions of that match. Here, through the miracle of push-button wrestling, is a bounce that registered number 9 on the Richter scale. Yes, the miracle of slow motion and computerized television. And here's the hesitation bounce. It's easy with a machine. I wish I could have done it that way, but bouncing George around just isn't possible. And this is the way it made him feel in slow motion. As a matter of fact, just take a look at that. I think he burped, but I'm not quite certain. And here is George Harris in action. You never knew that he was really a flying gazelle and that he actually had moments of hesitation when he couldn't make up his mind. But I'm glad he didn't make up his mind, because when he did, this is what happened, and he came down right smack on both of those bellies of his, and I want to tell you, that's smarts. And we thought you might enjoy this little different look at Channel 39's Houston Wrestling.
The team of Baron Karl von Kraupp and Playboy Gary Hart. Then across the ring, the sensational duo of Sweet Leroy Brown and the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. Two referees, Bronco Lubitsch and Danny McShane.
Out of 3 falls, and a more colorful pair than Dusty Rhodes and Sweet Leroy Brown is going to be difficult to find. And possibly a pair like Gary Hart and his partner here is impossible to find, no matter how many days march. This match here tonight, the semifinal at the Sam Houston Coliseum, and referees of Bronco Lubitsch and Danny McShane, and the bell has sounded for the first fall. So it's Leroy, Sweet Leroy, and Germany's Karl von Kraupp. And Leroy has had enough of politeness. You can see right now that what he intends to do is to use those denting tactics. Look at that Dusty Rhodes in the background. He sure knows how to get the best out of Leroy Brown. And Leroy Brown knows how to give to Karl von Kraupp his best. And Dusty is over there. He was just lecturing Karl von Kraupp on the errors of his ways. Kraupp suddenly became aware of what was happening and got away post haste. Outside, von Kraupp. Hart waiting in the corner. Here the suit of many colors. Leroy has a big hand. No, not a hand as big as Andre the Giant. Nobody has one of those. But he's got the hand of a 365-pounder for sure. And the fans are telling him to plant it somewhere on Karl von Kraupp. And Leroy is trying to fight off the effects of that claw hold and strengthen those stomach muscles of his. And whoa! He whomped him that time. Listen to those fans as they scream their advice to Leroy, and Leroy tries his best to shake loose that claw hold grip. And Leroy is waiting for Gary Hart to step in. Their former association as manager and managee, shall I call him? But Gary Hart had a stable of one in Leroy Brown, and he had a little argument over money. Leroy wanted some. That's bound to cause an argument as far as Gary Hart's concerned. And there is the claw hold to the head of Karl von Kraupp, and Dusty Rhodes comes in. The touch was legal, and Dusty gives him the All-American Dream approach. And von Kraupp's having a great time. Having Gary Hart for a partner has not been his idea of a fun evening. Listen to the enthusiastic roar of these fans as Dusty Rhodes is literally the cheerleader, beating the tattoo on Hart now that he has swapped places. The dreams approach. Oh, man, he skid on both sides of Gary Hart's face that time. You'd almost see the skid marks. And the big boot of Karl von Kraupp, the claw hold of Karl von Kraupp, the weight of Gary Hart, and von Kraupp that time just managed to put Hart in a very untenable position. The twist on the wrist, and Dusty Rhodes gets a mandate from these fans to break it off. And I'll tell you what, Leroy Brown is willing to stand there and be a battering ram all day. They touch. So Leroy comes in and he wants Gary Hart. I think they're matching fingers to see who's going to take Hart and put him out of commission. But look out for Hart. He's got a certain innate toughness that just makes him bounce back from punishment. The best way would be to say is that he's a glutton for punishment. And his gluttony is soon satisfied in a match here with Leroy Brown in the ring. And Leroy just got bitten on the kneecap, if you want a technical description. And here comes Germany's Karl von Kraupp one more time. So the big boot is going, and he is literally trying to kick Leroy's head off. The claw hold, this is not his eye claw, not the controversial hold that he has used so frequently here. This is the iron claw to the head, and look at the look of joy on the face of that claw hold applicant. And Leroy is trying to shake it loose. Dusty in, but Dusty is being pushed out by referee Branko Lubitsch. Tag team. You have to tag to get in or out, and Brown has been in twice in this first fall, and so has von Kraupp, with Hart and Rhodes making one foray apiece. Not that you keep score, it's just the effectiveness of the team that is heightened by the quick switches. Leroy comes up high enough to make it difficult for Kraupp to hang on to the head presser there, but it sure can take a lot out of you. That's what's happening right now. The effectiveness of the claw hold is being accentuated by the length of time it's held, but it also manages to weaken the grip of the man who is applying it, in this case von Kraupp. And Leroy is catching it. And Hart comes in with the anticipation of finding a guy who's been softened up for him. So Gary Hart lets Von Kraupp do his softening up work and comes over to try to reap the rewards and score a fall on Leroy Brown, but Leroy now has put a stop to it. Dusty Rhodes ready to come in and to take on the Chicago. Oh, man, how he was using that elbow, and the crowd here with that roaring noise that tells him to go right ahead and do it. And Hart looks like a bad Saturday night. In this case, a bad Friday night. So Hart right now doesn't care whether it's Friday or Saturday, and neither does Leroy. He just wants to belt him down through the canvas if necessary or if possible. He looked like an easy mark, and it didn't work out that way. On top. And there's the first fall. Going to Karl von Kraupp as
9 minutes, 53 seconds. Baron von Kraupp and Gary Hart.
So Herr von Kraupp takes it. It goes to Hart and von Kraupp, but we've got at least one more fall and maybe two. We'll be back in a moment and pick up the rest of the action.
Roy Rogers Dale.
Leroy's neck, but Leroy is able to touch. We've got the second fall underway now with Dusty Rhodes, who has not been affected by the punishment that has come Leroy Brown's way. But right now, with that stomach claw there, he is liable to be. He is having his problems as that powerful right hand of Karl von Kraupp literally eats into the midsection of Dusty Rhodes. And look who's there, making sure that he is able to add to the misery of Dusty Rhodes, the all-American dream. So Dusty's caught, and Hart is being shielded by von Kraupp. Now, Dusty's on the outside of the ring. He deserves a chance right now to get back in the ring. The count should only be 5 on von Kraupp, but look what's happening with Gary Hart out there. Well, maybe we want to see what's happening to Dusty Rhodes out there. Dusty right now is trying to get out from underneath that chair that's pressing down on him. And somebody is going to either be counted out or disqualified in this particular melee. Dusty, the man, is up and trying to do something. And, oh, whoa, 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 how he clobbered him. Now, those two belong in the ring. The count has been broken. And here comes von Kraupp. We've got Gary Hart and Leroy Brown up here above us, but they belong outside the ring. But we've got two matches going on at the same time as everything busts loose here, and the claw hold, the eye claws being put on Dusty Rhodes, and you can see the battling in the background. Gary Hart is through the ropes, and Leroy is chomping down on his eye and trying to get even with him for what happened in the first fall. But his own partner is having his problems. Dusty trying to fight his way loose from the claw hold. The effort of that huge hand of Karl von Kraupp. And above us again, you see Gary Hart. Now you can see him being swamped by Leroy Brown as Sweet is being ushered out of the ring. And again, the tide changes as for a moment it looked as though Dusty was going to be able to fight his way out of the claw hole, but then he was jerked down onto the canvas again. Of course, that's the most advantageous position. And listen to those fans now urging Leroy to bounce into the ring and to kick Kraupp away. But Leroy is trying to, Dusty's trying to handle it by himself. And he went to the wrong corner. And he has taken a tremendous amount of punishment. Here comes Kraupp, looking for the lead. And Dusty was looking for him. We've got Dusty on top. We've got it. And Sweet Leroy Brown kept Gary Hart from interfering as Dusty won the equalizing fall. The second fall goes to Rhodes and Brown, and with people scattered all over the ring, we tell you we'll be back here in a moment. And there goes the bell for the start of the third fall, and Sweet Leroy Brown has come into the ring, helping Dusty out, but Dusty pushes him aside and wants to come in and do it himself, and you can see that he has something with which to do it. Outside, we see Gary Hart, but we see Dusty Rhodes doing something about it. Well, he started to do something about it, but he caught a jab in the eye. And now he's calling for the eye claw. Outside is Dusty Rhodes getting the eye claw applied to him. So Rhodes caught in the eye claw as the cheering section was led just by one, and that was Gary Hart. And here is the German again in to apply the claw to the head or to the eye, I'm not sure which, and Dusty Rhodes goes out of the ring to escape the punishment. And whether he will or not remains problematical, because we've got the claw following him out here, and here comes Leroy Brown coming around here to try to add a little help to Dusty Rhodes. Dusty's now moving up the aisle in the wrong direction, and fans all over patting him, cheering him, telling him what to do. And Leroy now wants to maneuver, but Dusty's got to go back in the ring, and he's got to touch Leroy over in the corner. Man, it's the eye claw he's using right now, and there was no effort to break it by the referee, so he's looking at it as being legal. And they're caught again, sounding off with that same chant of his, eye claw, eye claw, eye claw, and the reinforced grip of Karl von Kraupp as he pours it onto the head of Dusty Rhodes. And Rhodes has taken a lot of punishment in this second fall. It was Brown who caught most of it in the first fall, but Dusty has been doing yeoman work for his team in there, and while he is caught in that claw, there are not many of these fans who are counting Dusty out. There's the touch, and here is a man who would like nothing better than to pin either Dusty Rhodes, who christened Gary Hart Honky, or to pin Sweet Leroy Brown, who broke his contract to him. Trouble for Dusty Rhodes. He's underneath, and now he's just coming right out and trying to use an eye gouge on Dusty Rhodes with both hands. But notice what's happening in the background. The touch as Leroy comes in, and it's Dusty who does it. He may get the pin. He got it. Dusty Rhodes who fell on Gary Hart to pin him. It was sweet, sweet Leroy Brown who applied the battering ram on one side to hold up Gary Hart. So the third fall in the match go to Brown and Rhodes. And listen to the tremendous uproar of these fans as they let loose with a great deal of enthusiasm over the win. We'll be back here with you after we have this word from the studio.
Now, right before your eyes, you can turn ordinary foods like these into appetizing treats like this.
Who has followed in the footsteps of his famous dad, Louis Hernandez. We don't always agree with everything that Gino says, but we give him a chance to say it.
Well, at least you have one thing correct to say. Let me say this to everyone, everywhere. Paul Boesch, you know I will take on any opponent. I don't care if it's Gary Young, Jose Lothario, Tony Atlas, anyone, any Tiger Conway Jr., anyone at any time, because I feel I'm the greatest wrestler of all time. I know I'm the most handsome, the most educated, the best physically built, and I am definitely the greatest wrestler of all time, Paul Boesch. And like I said, any opponent, any place, any time.
Are you also the most modest of wrestlers?
Paul Boesch, you may call me conceited, but I am not conceited. I am confident. There's a big difference. I do not think I'm great. I know I'm great. I'm not great. I am the greatest, Paul Boesch. And like I've said before, anytime, any place, I've proven myself over and over. I want all you people out there to know how lucky you are to be looking at the most handsome athlete of all time in any sport, the most educated athlete of all time. And let me say again, I want to tell all the women out there, wherever I wrestle at, to quit touching my body, quit bothering me, because, hey, you don't stand a chance. And all the men out there that say you want to look like gorgeous Gino Hernandez, forget it, because there's only one, and that is me. And like I said, I hate to be repetitious, but anyone, any place, any time.
You hate to be repetitious, except when you're telling them of your strong points.
Boesch, if I had to list my strong points, you could have this interview to be 3 hours long, and we couldn't even hit on them. So I'll just say one thing to all the people. Here I come. If you're lucky enough, you will see me in person. Good day.
He said good day. We hope that he has made it a good day for you.
In our segment on the womanly art of self-defense, we've been talking about safety in the home. Well, an apartment is most certainly a home for so many, many, many millions of people. May we speak a little bit about an apartment, because it is necessary, perhaps far more necessary, to protect yourself in an apartment. The idea of not opening your door without knowing who is on the other side of that door becomes even more important when you are surrounded by neighbors. May I suggest first that you look over the parking lot in your apartment, and if you find that there are dangerous aspects to it, to the washing machine area or the garbage collection area, wherever it might be, if you find that you are frightened every time that you visit these places, that you form a small committee of your neighbors, get them all to go to the management and speak about it and see if you can't get something done about it. The voices of several people, the rent of several people has a much better effect than just one tenant, and sometimes it works a lot better. May I suggest that you have a telephone arrangement with people who are near you and in whom you have confidence and trust. You can't pick your neighbors in an apartment any more than you can pick them if you live in a house. But if you have found reason to be trustful of many of them, then have a telephone arrangement that calls for safety precautions. Have some sort of a code arrangement so that if you're calling somebody on any pretext, if you say certain things, that it means that you are in trouble and need help right away. These are means of combating the advantage that the attacker has in attacking you suddenly and without warning. And above all, may I suggest that you be suspicious and that you take advantage in advance of all of the information that you can possibly find in books, in newspapers, or on the television or the radio. Just remember that the Boston Strangler, who raped and murdered some 13 women in the period of about a year and 3 months, that all of his victims, most of his victims, I should say, lived in apartment houses, And it was carelessness in most instances because women opened the door. Not one time in all of his assaults on women did he break down a door. In every occasion, he just used the wits of a maniac to entice the people to open the door and invite him into the apartment. Even a maniac can use common sense to get into your apartment, so locking the door is the first line of self-defense. If somebody says the manager sent them, then call the manager. Ask the manager if he has sent somebody to do something in your apartment, whether it's repair or painting, or no matter what it is. Be suspicious. You're going to live a lot longer, but also be knowledgeable and don't be afraid.
And now, the first country collection to contain the greatest hits and only the greatest hits by America's 6 favorite country performers.
Much nostalgia and as much memory as the two you are going to see in action right now. You are looking at the back of Duke Keomuka as he chops away now at Ricki Starr and drives those wallops into the young man who got his wrestling start in the state of Texas and proved that despite the fact that he was under 200 pounds, he was going to make a name for himself. The referee is Leo Voss in this match, and Duke Keomuka is trying his best to overcome a shifty young man whose father was a wrestler and his father was a referee and who wrestled it at Purdue and then decided to go into the pro wrestling game. Where is Ricki Starr today? Well, that question is often asked, but Ricki Starr is in England or France, depending on how long he can stay in either place. He is involved somewhat in wrestling, somewhat in nightclub work. He sings, he dances, and he will long and always be remembered for the fact that after he became a well-known figure in wrestling, he switched his shoes and put on ballet slippers and suddenly became aware of the fact that he had done ballet dancing in the St. Louis Municipal Opera, and he transferred it to the ring. Duke Keomuka, one of the toughest people ever to wrestle in a Texas ring, and remembered for that fact. And even here as he tosses Ricki Starr around, he is leaving impressions in the minds of fans. Duke lives in Tampa, Florida. He is involved with wrestling in Florida. He is also involved with wrestling in Japan, and you can see that Ricki Starr preceded some of these people who bounced into the ring in great fashion, and the driving wallops that he is throwing at Keomuka equal the chops that Keomuka has been handing to his opponents. Leo Voss now, the count was the same then. 20 if you're on the floor and 10 if you're on the apron, and that head scissor that brought Duke Keomuka into the ring can see its counterpart in the flying tactics of today. This match somewhere in the early 1960s, and both contestants still have a hold on fans who saw them then and who often ask about where they might be. So when we speak of nostalgia, Ricki Starr certainly evokes the pangs of memory in great fashion, but Duke Keomuka even more so because he lasted longer as a top-notcher. He met the greats with greater success, and he typified to the rest of the wrestling world. Notice the bridge that Ricki is coming through with right now as he rises up from the canvas to protect his shoulders. Ricki was agile, and he was tremendously well-schooled in wrestling. His size at that time and always was a factor in his difficulties. On the outside of the ring, you see that looks to me like George Preston, who was a very colorful ring announcer and who often took sides in what took place in the ring, and he is rooting for Ricki Starr, and George Preston often was involved vocally with the feelings of the fans, and he had no hesitancy about calling for the man he chose to be the favorite in the match to get out of a hold or to do something, and he did it on the loudspeaker often. Duke Keomuka and Ricki Starr, and Ricki with those flying feet of his and the speed that he used so well. And this flying mare gives you an idea of another hold that Ricki Starr was able to use with a great deal of success because of his ability, dancing, if you will. He learned that first, and here he is flying around in a manner that makes this match truly a great one for the nostalgia of what used to be Texas wrestling.
We've got beautiful memories of Christmas.